podcast. I'm so glad you're here. We are going to have a power-packed episode today, all about some good boundaries with things like email, things like managing your social media instead of social media managing you. And our amazing and ever funny Chief Inspirational Officer, Heidi Feller, is going to be joining me for this conversation. So you're not going to want to miss it. While you're listening to this, it is mid-March. And our next boot camp is filling up. We do a social media boot camp a few times throughout the year, and our next session is coming up in July. Summer is a great time to take it because your schedule looks a little different in the summer than it does during the school year. So you've got some time to devote to really getting a foundational plan, a system. What works? Let's plan out and make social media the best it can be in the 22-23 school year. And that program is available for a limited number of students. So we're already starting to fill up. So if you were thinking about grabbing your seat, the cost there is $395 per person. You can sign up. I've got a link right in the show notes. But a recent boot camper that just went through it this last winter said, social media boot camp is definitely worth your time and investment if you're looking to improve anything about your school's social media accounts. There is strong evidence and examples in this boot camp to make both small and extremely large changes to your organization's social media outreach methods. This boot camp is the most helpful tool available for improving your school's social media in 2022. You guys, this boot camp, this training is only for K-12 schools. We are only talking to you. So if you've taken any other social media training, it's probably about businesses, and that's not specifically schools. I've been doing social media for schools every day since April 15th of 2014, every single day of my life. Because yes, you are still kind of involved in on the weekends. I don't know how many days that is over the nearly 8 years, but it's a lot. And we try to share the things that work with you in this boot camp. So again, head over to socialschoolforedu.com, look under services, get registered, grab your seat before they're gone, because honestly, we keep the group intentionally small. So there's only a certain amount of seats open. But check that out. And now let's get to today's K-12 PR tip, because we love simple tips. Okay, a quick K-12 PR tip to start off this episode is, you know what, virtual learning is awesome, but in person, like being with people, is amazing. And so I just want to say, get involved in your local, state, national chapters. There's a lot of events coming up that you should get to. And if you don't have a local or state SPRA chapter that you're involved with, I just want to invite you to Oklahoma in June. I am going to be keynoting GabCon 2022, which is put on by Gabbert Communications, but you don't have to be a Gabbert client. They do website and communication tools for schools, but they have a lot of sessions at this 3-day event, June 12th through the 14th. They've got very negotiated, super low hotel rates, and the cost of the event is very low, like under $300. So you can check it out on gabconevents.com. You can get registered and I will see you there in person, which would be so awesome. But my tip, whether you attend this or you attend some other in-person event, I just want to urge you to make some real life connections. Now that hopefully most of the restrictions have been lifted in regards to all the COVID parameters, we've been kind of locked away from each other for so long. Make time, whether it be this spring, this summer, next school year, of getting to an event in person. It's really life-changing to be able to build some of those relationships. So that is my tip for today. Okay, now let's get to a lot of tips on boundary setting with my guest, Heidi Feller. Welcome back to the podcast, Heidi Feller.
Hey, it's great to be here, Andrea Gribble. I'm excited.
And Heidi's all wearing her Social School for EDU swag. If you're watching us on YouTube, you can see this great show. of
I'm
ours.
on brand. I'm on brand. Let me
I
tell you.
I love it. Our chief inspirational officer is back. I don't know, fifth or sixth time. Heidi, we got to get our fill of wisdom from you. So how are you?
I'm laughing because I'm like wisdom. Wow. I love it. I'm great. I'm really good. I'm great. How are
Yeah,
you?
it's a great time of year because we're celebrating a lot of things, but this time of year also is like March, April, May, right?
Mhm.
Because for especially for school communicators, because it's like all of the end of the season planning and end of year and seniors and graduation and all of the things, and it can be really overwhelming. And you, by the way, have a senior.
Don't even. I literally just lost my garbage on him. And because yeah, his plans are ever changing, right? So I guess I'm just like, just go back to the system, Heidi. What's the system? Just go back to the system, right? But yeah, I just lost my garbage on him. He needs to leave. It's time to leave.
And it's
And a
your
friend,
last one.
it's my last one. And actually a friend once told me this. It was a former piano teacher. So our daughter Hannah took piano lessons from a lovely woman by the name of Rondine here in town. And I decided to take piano lessons at the same time as an adult. And so then when I couldn't complete my assignment and I would come to the piano lesson, I would say things like this. Well, I would have gotten my homework done, but I had to cook Thanksgiving dinner. I bet none of your other students are saying that. At any rate, as I was talking to Rondine about seniors and things like that, she gave me a great piece of advice. And she said, seniors act like jerks on purpose. And here is why. Because otherwise, as a mother, you would never be able to let your kids leave, right? You would say to yourself, you would cry all day long. You would be upset. So instead, they act like, you know what, fill in the blank so that you're like, dude, get out. And that would be what happened this morning in our house. Good luck to me.
Goodness, that's your first dose of wisdom right there. If your
First dose
kids
of
are
wisdom.
jerks for you to you, it's just because then you won't be sad, as sad. You're still gonna be a little sad.
Yes.
But
Mhm.
I love it. Well, to as some survival tips, not only as mothers and mothers of seniors, we kind of wanted to get together today to talk about boundaries and social media because social media is a challenging job for anybody doing social media, especially for a school. Well, for yourself too, but for a
Mhm.
school. And we've learned a ton in doing this, going on 8, 9 years here for schools. One of the big things that you kind of just coined is good boundaries equals great storytelling. So, can you talk to me a little bit about that?
Yes, I mean that's important. I think good boundaries are important all the way around. As someone who's been in and out of therapy and right over the years, certainly personal boundaries are very, very important. But boundaries as they relate to social media and your storytelling efforts on behalf of your district are crucial. You will die a fast death, not a slow death, if you do not have good boundaries. And also, your storytelling truly will suffer for it if you do not have good boundaries. And definitely, we've learned just a ton from our account managers over these last 8 years. We just finished our monthly team meeting right now, and I certainly learned some things just in that 40 minutes as our team gathered virtually. And they are the experts because, Andrea, while you and I only celebrate one district, many of our account managers celebrate 4 and 5 districts at a time. So if they do not have good boundaries, they will have garbagey storytelling.
Yeah. And, we can't always relate perfectly, although you used to be a school communicator, so you can relate a little bit closer because you were in the job.
Mhm.
But our team at Social School for EDU for 93 school districts across the country, we manage their social media. And we have a team that does it, and it's a part-time job. And many of our folks are full-time parents, and so they're juggling while you guys all are juggling all the other requirements within your school and all the other communication jobs that you have to do beyond just social media for your school. Our account managers are balancing other schools that they work with and, being a parent or a spouse and leading a household and doing all of the things, and maybe some part-time work. And so we've kind of had to develop some really good systems to make it work, because that work life, and we don't call it balance, we call it kind of harmony, although
Mhm.
sometimes it's not perfect harmony, right? That's really vital, right?
Mhm. It absolutely is. Yeah. And I think that really important to remember as you're listening to the rest of this podcast is that developing those good boundaries and good systems for yourself, as a school communicator, and your role, in storytelling efforts for social media, it's a process, not a project. You're never going to be done honing in on that. You're never going to reach nirvana. So just remember, it's always a process,
Yeah.
always.
Yeah. And I think it really starts, around our relationship with email. And I know that, I think it was once said that you check your email like right now, an average of like 263 times a day, just
Yeah.
flipping like nutso.
Yep.
But what are some of your tips in regards to, just tracking your email? And again, we're specifically kind of talking about how we're managing social media. You can look at this as applying to your whole job as a school communicator or whatever. But share some of your tips on that.
Yeah, I think the first one that is super important, and I will tell you is a game changer for people when they do it, is to actually have a separate email for social media. So you're separating your tabs on your brain. So that's the first thing, right? Because then you know that as you're curating that story for your school district on social media, that you have just one email address where, and you train staff, and we've talked about that many times, you get the word out, that kind of a thing. And that way, then, if you are receiving emails in your regular school email address, they have to do with other communication avenues. And perhaps it's an emergency or something along those lines. So that would be the first one that I would say is get a separate email. Helps keep your brain tab separate. And also it allows you to go on vacation because of course, storytelling efforts should not cease or take a break while you are gone on social media, but you also shouldn't be doing social media when you're on vacation. So if you have a separate social media email address and you've taken the time, and time equals years, to train your staff to use it, to send those great news items to you for posting out, and you share that with your backup person, that kind of a thing, that then you really can take a vacation. So first of all, separate email. And the second thing I would say is that you want to shut off email notifications. And personally, I would say this is for anything. Unless you actually are a surgeon, you should not have email notifications on. And even then, I'm going to suggest perhaps you don't have them on because it might distract you from performing surgery. Just saying. I mean, I was a humanities major, but
I never know what kind of comparisons Heidi's going to draw out. I mean, it might be like, swimsuit shopping. It might be a giraffe. It might be a surgeon. And
could be
so,
surgeons.
or an athletic, comparison.
Oh,
And I'm
I
sure
love
that'll
to.
come out yet.
Oh, it
Yet.
will. Yeah. The good offense is the best defense. I don't even, I mean, I just say them incorrectly. What period is it for basketball? That's hockey. I don't know. My husband's a golf pro. Who even knows what any of this means?
So one thing is like when you're saying email notifications, you're kind of talking about like those push notifications, right? Like, you know how your phone buzzes every time you get a text message. If your phone is buzzing every time a new email comes in, I think you should not have that. You should kind of have some set times that you're going in to look at emails, because otherwise you're looking at them all flipping day long. And then
yes,
it's that, right? Multitasking is a 4-letter word, right?
yes,
We can't multitask. It is not possible. And I used to think that was like a badge of honor, like that I am a multitasker. No, you're not. We're human and we can't do 3 things at once.
no.
And so I think that's really important.
Yeah. And when I say not only buzzing, I actually mean that little red thing up in the corner. So my husband's one of them. He has his notifications on, despite the fact that I have told him in a nice way and not so nice way that he's not a surgeon, right? It's not brain surgery. That's what I say. You're a golf pro. It's not brain surgery. Why is that thing up in the corner. Also, it shows that then he has 1,472 email notifications. What? You're not ordering that from Pottery Barn. Unsubscribe to those emails. So I don't do it. They're all going to be there. They're all going to be there. And again, back to the process, not a project. If throughout this process as a school communicator, you really start to set the tone of, folks, if the world is on fire and I need to be communicated with, then you will pick up the phone and you will call me. And then I will know that a water main, has broken and that the elementary school is underwater and that I'll need to get that out, however, to families that is necessary. Otherwise, no, shut off the email notifications. Please do it. And then I think after you've shut off the email notifications, and that's going to feel a lot like jumping without a parachute. It's going to feel a lot like what? You guys know that, right? Every once in a while when I say that to people, or even with text notifications after a certain time during the day, they'll say, well, what if my kid needs to get a hold of me? And my response always is what did we do when we were kids? Right?
Right.
Okay. So don't worry about it. Okay. I would say shut off email notifications. And then the next thing that I would do regarding email and boundary setting is I would pick certain times of the day to check your email. It should not be open all day long. You should not be checking your email all day long. You should not be checking your email on your phone all day long. So I think that you have to pick very specific times when you're going to check your email to see what has happened. That doesn't mean you respond to it. It just means that you're checking it. So on that note, Andrea, how do you do that? Like, do you have other systems in place that you use when you're, using your desktop?
Well, yeah. And I think the big thing is, and again, we're kind of talking about that social media aspect. I've got a separate email that all the New Auburn stuff comes to, and I'm checking that kind of periodically throughout the day, in the morning, first thing when I get up, around lunchtime. And then I've got some designated times where hey, thank you, this is going to post soon. And then I'm scheduling out those posts to be, posted. We don't post everything in the immediate, like it's got to be posted now. We're curating that story. And so just like as we're talking this week, I'm gonna be traveling. So it's a little bit, sometimes I'm in an airplane and sometimes I'm speaking in front of some people. But when I know that, okay, at this point of the day, I'm going to be checking in and I know that I'm not going to miss anything, because that time of the day, I can check it and I can get back to people, and then I can schedule things out, because I'm going to give myself that 20 minutes to think about it, tell the story in a good way, use my hashtag, try to drive engagement and all of those things. I feel really good. And then when I go on to do the rest of the work the rest of the day, I know that next day I'm going to have that same chunk of time to look at things. So if more comes in, I don't have to feel overwhelmed like, oh my gosh, I got to look at this right away. And that really helps me. Is that kind of similar to what you do?
Yes, exactly. And I actually try to align my times with scheduled times for Facebook posts. So, we've talked at length in many blogs and podcasts and all of the things that we put out there for the folks who belong to the crew, as well as for our management clients, that posting consistently at consistent times on Facebook really harnesses the algorithm. It helps folks see those things more often in their feed. And so that is when I check my email as well. Again, it's not necessarily the time when I'll answer the email, and it certainly isn't necessarily the time when I'm scheduling things out. But back to that phrase of that it's a process, not a project, is that over the years, our management clients really do understand that we're the experts, if you will. I love it when they say that, you know what to do with this, right? They always say, you're the expert, you can judge it up. But they also understand that if they send something in on a Monday and it gets posted out on a Wednesday at 3 p.m., there was a method to that madness. Now, we're not talking about urgent items or something that perhaps is an emergency, whether it belongs on social media or not. We're just talking about that regular curation of an entire district story on Facebook. And so I align my checking of my email with that as well. Awesome. And back to that process, not a project. we all fall off the wagon. And then we like, now I'm knee deep into some sort of vegan recipe on Pinterest. So as long as I'm there, I might as well, right? Might as well check then my email 175 times in the last 2 minutes. So you kind of have to set boundaries again for yourself. It's not going to do us any good to keep checking this email, et cetera, et cetera. And I really think that setting those times for checking the email and then moving on to the next step, as you've said, Andrea, of actually doing something with those emails, is having some constructive work time. Pick an hour, pick 20 minutes, pick 30 minutes. The fact is that once you get rolling, you really can schedule those things out and you can manage social media in a decent and a reasonable amount of time each workday. So, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a big game changer for our team, and just by the way, everybody listening, like if you're picking up and you're gonna like implement one of these things, we want to know about it. So you can email me, Andrea at socialschoolforedu.com. You can tag me on Twitter at Andrea Gribble. Like we want to know about it because and maybe you have some other ideas that we're not going to talk about today. Let's talk about those too. But one of the biggest game changers, and I think again this can help with social media and the rest of your job, is schedule send.
Schedule send. Do you hear angels singing? Because I do. Right. Like
There it was.
the heavens opened. Now, and I'm going to come at this from a very like strong, like European perspective right now. For those of you who know me, right, when the world is normal, I travel a lot and I lived in Europe. And did you know that it is actually a worker's right in France to not be contacted via email by their boss or employer outside of work hours? What? Just because you can work from anywhere doesn't mean you should work from anywhere. Just because you can work anytime doesn't mean you should work anytime. Okay. So schedule send. What is that? How does that work? We use it in Google, right? Schedule send. So we know that staff members, I regularly have a group of second or third grade teachers who gather their thoughts regarding social media and what they want out on the district Facebook page. They really gather those thoughts Friday afternoons, like at 4:30. And they are well aware that when they send that email, that they will receive a response from me on Monday morning at 8 a.m. because that's when I'm going to schedule send that. I'm not bothering them over the weekend. And they know they're not bothering me over the weekend. Helping to set that boundary for yourself and for others, because you teach people how to treat you, but more importantly, you teach you how to treat you. And schedule send was a huge, huge game changer for our entire team, and clearly for the entire nation of France.
Yeah. And it's not to say that you can't check your emails on a Thursday night at 8 o'clock. I mean, we have some of our moms that are working and they're like, that's when their kids go to bed and that's their constructive work time. Awesome. But when you start showing people and you're emailing things at 8 p.m., 11 p.m., 1 o'clock in the morning, like, I don't care. I mean, okay, you can't sleep. And so you want to get something off. I get it. But you can hit that schedule send so that it looks like it's that normal 8 to 5 or 8 to 4 or whatever your school day is. That's setting a better example. That's better for you. That's better for them, because if you all of a sudden start sending stuff at 11 o'clock at night, they're going to start sending stuff to you at 11 o'clock at night thinking, oh, she's on, she's going to respond.
Yep.
Right. So I think it's something that's really, really powerful, and has definitely changed things for us.
Absolutely. And back to that constructive work time, again, during our team meeting today, one of our young moms said, I don't work when I'm with her daughter, whose name is Lucy. Stop it. The cuteness. I can't even. At any rate, she says, I don't do that. That's not me as a good parent. It's also not me as a good, partner with Social School for EDU. So she does do her work time later on that night. And it helps those of us who have that, like, let's check things off our list. I love to hit schedule send on an email. If I do choose to check it later on after work hours, then at least I know that's already taken care of for the next morning. And for some reason, it just removes that stress from my brain. but schedule send is huge. Start using it, and not just for social media. Start using it. Stop emailing people over the weekend. It's not helpful. It isn't.
Yeah. And there's some tools that we use not only with the email sending, but scheduling things out on social media. So, Business Suite, Meta, whatever you call it. I mean, Creator Studio is kind of going away. We do things right in that Facebook app. Twitter, you can schedule things out. Instagram, obviously, you can do through the Facebook business suite, so you can do both of those. So that's really powerful, so that you don't have to be thinking, oh my gosh, I've got to, schedule this right away, or I didn't have anything scheduled for today, so now I got to hurry up and get this out. I always use the saying, I want to manage social media. I don't want social media to manage me, right?
Yeah. Completely agree. Then you don't have to be hanging on it in the last minute. That's when mistakes are made. They really are. And oh, wait, here's my sports reference. The best defense is a good offense. Did I say it the right way?
Yes, you did. You didn't earlier, but this
I
one
know.
was.
It remains a mystery to me after all these years, and yet I'm married to a basketball. The best defense is a good offense.
Yes.
Don't be walking around like 5 minutes late on everything. Go ahead, schedule send. Go ahead, use the business suite app on your phone. Schedule things out on Facebook and Instagram. Then you're kind of a cool customer. You're like, yeah, no, I totally have this all set. I'm good. I just did my throwback Thursdays for the next like 7 weeks on purpose. Came up with some super sassy things to say, still appropriate, but super sassy things. And I felt so good after I got it done. And honestly, it took me maybe 15 minutes.
Right.
15.
Yeah.
Crazy. Still had time to yell at my senior.
Yeah. And instead of having to do that every single week, and we did just recently share an awesome batching blog, which is what we really, strive to do, is shut your door for just a little amount of time and just get it done.
Yep.
So that's really good. So one other thing that I kind of wanted to cover, because I think we've gotten through quite a bit of this, and I love it. And the other thing is just, I mean, where we talk about social media, we manage that instead of it managing you. It's that proactive versus reactive. And when you always feel like, oh my God, all this stuff is coming in and I can't get it out fast enough, instead of getting a plan, getting it out there. And again, like, I love to look at the week and know that, okay, I got my staff feature scheduled, I got a student feature scheduled, I got my throwback Thursday scheduled. Like, that's already 3 of my, what I'm kind of aiming for, 10 posts out on Facebook each week. Okay, here's the buckets that I need to fill. If I'm not getting stuff in, because again, you can't do this job alone. You've got to get storytellers within your district. So if I'm not getting stuff in, it's like, okay, I'm reaching out to my art teacher or my tech ed teacher or those cute little 4K kids, right? Pre-kindergartners, because we know that they are doing some green eggs and ham or, whatever. And so we can do that and then be in a proactive manner instead of reactive.
Absolutely. It just helps you have a good handle on this aspect of the job, because this aspect of the job, honestly, should, for the most part, be the most fun, number one, and the brightest spot of the day. But it should not take up your whole day. You should not be hanging on Facebook. You should not have that tab open. You should not be open on your brain. It should not be open on your desktop. It should not be open on your phone. It just shouldn't.
Yeah, you can manage ways of checking in, feeling in control, all of those things, which sometimes starts with making sure you're posting good stuff, right? Because we all know that there can be some stuff, and we've talked about that a lot on the podcast. So boundaries, and one of the things is developing some of these boundaries with a lot of people that have opinions about how you should be running social media for your district. So obviously you've got to have some of those conversations. But one of the things that frequently comes up, and we've talked about it before, is just these community groups, these Facebook groups that exist, that are either next door or it's just concerned parents of, whatever your community is. It's a mom's group, it's a dad's group, it's whatever. But sometimes we've got school board members, Heidi, that say, I want you as a school communicator in that group because if there's something going on, you've got to respond. And we've had to kind of give some advice on that. So can you kind of talk to that?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. And my advice would be stay in your lane and stay sane. And no, you should not be responding. You're not playing whack-a-mole with every dingaling who has an opinion. And everybody does have one, and they're allowed to. I think that if you are instructed or choose to belong to some of those groups, you're best served to do it more as a voyeur and to not respond in the least, either privately, personally, or publicly as the district. I think that instead you can use it sort of as a thermometer, a dipstick, heavy on the dip, sometimes, and right, heavy on the dip, seriously. And so that you understand, like, if there is truly a large group of people, whatever that means, who believe that something is out there, we know that perception, that kind of thing, then perhaps you could decide to address it through a direct communication. But you're certainly not going to put anything out on on your district Facebook page, right? That kind of a thing. So for example, if the rumors are out there that an elementary school will be closed next year, that kind of a thing, you can address that in a newsletter, just of like the board is looking at this, the next board meeting is for this, give people the facts, that kind of a thing. But I wouldn't spend too much time rubbernecking on that stuff. Stay in your lane and stay sane.
Yeah. And we have an article, and I'll link it in the show notes, just on handling some of these groups. And there's different suggestions from your school PR folks from across the country. But, another thing is just building relationships with advocates that are inside those groups. So it's not you, but it's maybe just making sure, and I'm sure you all have them. You have them on your own Facebook page, right? Like when somebody says something bad, and you're like, should I respond? And all of a sudden you've got that person that's coming in and, hey, the school's doing great things with our bullying program, like this, and this. And so you don't have to say anything, but just building relationships with the advocates, with some of the people that are running some of those groups can help, because they can help, I guess, right the wrongs, or at least say, hey, why don't you just call the principal and talk about that issue instead of going off on it on social media here. Like, you can get a direct answer. I've talked to, Mr. Johnson several times, and whatever, right?
Yeah, you absolutely can do that. I wouldn't spend too much time, because sometimes these people fall in under the category of vigilante, and they think they're actually answering on behalf of the district and really helping, when instead they're fueling the fire. And so I would keep things pretty neutral. I would try to build those relationships off of social media if
Yeah,
you are going to
offline. Yeah.
give the invitation. And if they seem open to that meeting, once the meeting does occur, that you give them maybe a couple of pat phrases of like, we encourage you to call the district, or Superintendent Johnson is always available, or something along those lines. But again, I wouldn't spend too much time. I just wouldn't. Everybody has an opinion. They really do.
Yeah.
Sadly.
Yeah, and it can be hard. I mean, your mental health is so important. We care so much about the job that we do, and then sometimes that's hard to separate that. But if that has to follow you around, I mean, some of you could have a full-time job if you were to interact in those groups. That's all you would be doing, and then you're not serving the district in the best way. So, kind of as we wrap up, our time always goes so fast, Heidi. It's just crazy. But kind of my challenge to you, the listener, is what boundary do you need to start? What boundary do you need to start, or maybe need to re-implement now after we talked about this? It's like, oh, I used to do that and it was so good. Maybe it's the separate email, maybe it's that schedule send, maybe it's the, hey, really setting up a time to check your emails each day. Or, I mean, some people check it like once a week, which I could never do. Running a business and, doing the work we do, we have to check it daily. So I don't necessarily say go to that, but I'd love to hear. So if you've got a new boundary that you're going to kind of implement and want some help, email me, Andrea at socialschool4edu.com. I'd love to hear from you. What other things, kind of in closing, Heidi, would you want to say to our listeners?
I just think that if you're listening to this podcast, then you really want to do right by your district in telling great stories. And as we said at the beginning of the podcast, good boundaries equals great storytelling. The end. Do it. No one is going to give you an award when you reach the gates of heaven or reincarnate, whatever it is, right? For you having said, I did all of these things and ran the PTO. Don't do it. Good boundaries equals great storytelling.
Yeah, sometimes saying no is saying yes to all the right things, right? And so
Amen.
I still am learning that lesson, but I'm doing better.
You are
Um,
doing better.
and
You're doing really well.
Heidi's my counselor, everybody. So she's a
And
little
I'm
bit.
not nice. I mean, really, if you had a choice, am I right? You would be like, that was mean. That was just mean is what that was. But I find that it's best if I just say what I'm thinking right away.
Yes, I love that about you, Heidi. That's just one of
Someday.
the many things. So good luck, everybody. I mean, again, this is a crazy time of year, but the boundaries that you can put in now are just going to help not only you, but like you said, that helps your storytelling, and that helps your school district. It helps your kids. And so that is so powerful. So thanks for joining us again today, Heidi. We'll have you back before too long,
Please
chatting
do.
about something more, and maybe it needs to just be, another parental advice. I'm sure you could do a whole podcast series on that.
Let's do a whole podcast series on that. But in the meantime, if anyone would like to email Andrea and is looking for a delightful 18-year-old boy to live with them,
He does a lot of projects.
he is nothing but lovely to everyone but me. And so if you're looking for a helper, email Andrea. This guy's going to the highest bidder. I got news for you.
I love it. They didn't even know they were coming for that. So
Right, exactly.
all right, everybody, thanks so much for listening. If you've got a friend that needs to hear this, share this podcast episode with them, and we will see you next week with another great guest. Talk to you later. Bye, Heidi.
Bye.